Hello, and thank you for joining us on our Tuesday Lunch and Learn. Today, I'm excited to be able to bring to you the Board of Directors of the Pennsylvania Parks and Forests Foundation. The board is the guiding body for the foundation, and we thought it would be nice to have an opportunity for you to meet them. So with me in this studio now is Brad Mallory and Tina Molsky. Brad serves as the chairman of the board for the foundation, and Tina is the vice chairwoman for the board of directors. So Brad, if you would like to say a few words about who you are and your role on the board of directors and your appreciation for Parks and Forests.
Well, thank you, Marcy, and thank you all for joining us. I just realized on the wall behind my right to that shoulder over there is my grandfather's violin. He went to work in the woods in Pennsylvania when he was 11 years old. Was a lumberjack of sorts, as much of a lumberjack as you can be at the age of 11, and he worked there till he was about 18. And as a young boy, I spent a lot of time in the woods of northern Pennsylvania, principally Tioga and Potter counties, with him. And we would go about, and he would show me where the hotel was, where the bar was, for all these ghost towns that all these gentlemen worked in those very early years. And once every spring, we would drive around Potter County, Clinton County, Tioga County, and he would visit my grandfather's old friends, who my father referred to as the woodchucks. And these were the old loggers who were single, old men, slowly, eking out their lives and in houses that oftentimes looked like huts or were huts. And it just was seared, as you might expect, in my memory. And so as an adult, I became active in the outdoors, hiking, canoeing, one thing and another, camping with my family. And then when my wife and I had a daughter, we started camping every year at World's End State Park in Sullivan County. And it was just a seminal experience in my daughter's life, and she's an outdoors woman to this day. And it brought home to me the importance of our state parks and forests, which are an asset virtually beyond, any conception I think we could have of their value. And yet they are, of course, endangered. Things wear out. They face pollution. They face environmental. They face overuse. They face just the degradation that comes with being infrastructure. And so it's vitally important that somebody step up and try to find a way to assist and help and preserve and enhance this incredible resource. And that's what, at its very heart, the Pennsylvania Parks and Forests Foundation attempts to do with literally an army of volunteers throughout the state who do just tremendous work. And so, great activity, great people, serving a great purpose. Not a lot of better ways to spend your time than that.
Great, thank you, Brad. That sounds like a very interesting experience growing up, and be able to share that with your father and see that history. And we have a very rich history of conservation and of out being in the outdoors in Pennsylvania. Thank you.
I just came to realize I could never be a television weatherman because I can't point to things behind me on the screen,
It's the other shoulder. Yeah, it's the opposite. It is challenging.
I have a lot more respect for them now.
I always say if you walk a mile in someone's shoes, you definitely will develop that respect. So Tina serves as vice chairwoman of the board of directors. So Tina.
Yeah, hi everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. As well as being on the board for the Pennsylvania Parks and Forests Foundation, I also run REI's East Coast Distribution Center here in Bedford, Pennsylvania. So if you're familiar with REI, we love to get people outdoors. So whether it's volunteering or camping or hiking, I absolutely love our state parks and our forests. And I can think of no better time than now to really take advantage of what we have to offer. And what is so amazing to me, having lived in many states across our great nation, is that in Pennsylvania, they're 100% free for you to go if you want to hike, or you want a strenuous hike, or you want to leisurely walk, if you want to paddle, if you want to snowshoe in the winter, you can go and you can do that, and you do not have to pay to enjoy these beautiful, beautiful resources. So that being said, Brad, I think you summed it up so nicely. We have so many people using our parks and our forests right now. We need people to advocate to make sure they are safe, they are clean, they are continue to be beautiful, beautiful resources. So for everybody out there, if you want to volunteer, we would love to have you in our state parks and in our forests, whether it's clearing a trail, picking up some trash. Take advantage of the parks, but also take the time to give back.
Great. Thank you, Tina. And you pointed out an important aspect of our park and forest system. We're one of only a handful of parks and forests that have free admission, free parking. So economics is not a factor in determining whether or not you can enjoy our parks and forests. Thank you. We've also been joined in the studio by Mary Soderbergh. Mary serves as the secretary for the board of directors for the foundation, and also is vice chairwoman for the Friends of Pine Grove Furnace State Park. So Mary, welcome. The floor
Thank
is
you so
yours.
much, Marcy. My husband and I own a small cabin in the Michaud Forest, just west of Harrisburg. We're right on the edge of Pine Grove Furnace State Park. And that cabin has just opened up so many wonderful doors for us. Both my husband and I have become very active with the Friends organization in Pine Grove Furnace State Park. It's a great group of people. We're involved in things like trail maintenance. We organize various events on behalf of the park, and it's just a real sense of satisfaction to see the number of people who come out daily to enjoy that park, and knowing that the volunteers in their small way contribute to those experiences in the park. I did not grow up in Pennsylvania. And so I see Pennsylvania sometimes with different eyes than other people do. And something that I am always amazed at is the vision that some of our forefathers had in Pennsylvania in setting aside the state forest and the state parks. One of the statistics that it literally blows me away is to realize that we have 2.5 million acres in state forests and parks in Pennsylvania. That's twice the size of the state of Delaware. I mean, a lot of us think about the wilderness and the outdoors. You've got to go out west to Colorado or the state of Washington, but we have so much here in Pennsylvania. And in fact, one of the gentlemen who headed up our parks office in Pennsylvania, Maurice Goddard, had a vision that he wanted to have a park nearby every resident in the state of Pennsylvania. And that's true. When you look at a state map, you see state parks throughout the state. For most of us, it's less than an hour's drive to take a hike. It's pretty wonderful that we have that resource for everyone to enjoy.
Excellent. Yeah, we are very fortunate. A park within 25 miles of every resident. So that's pretty close. That's pretty close. Is there anything else that you would like to add? We have some other board members in the waiting room, but we would like, if the public has a question for you, to give them an opportunity to ask a question, or if there's any final things that you would like to share, we'd like to give you the opportunity to do that. For folks who'd like to learn more about each member of the board of directors, you can read about them on our website. The URL is showing on your screen now. We thank the three of you and all of our board members, because we couldn't do without your commitment to your state parks and state forests. And we know that it takes a chunk of time, but we're very, very thankful for your dedication. So thank you for joining us.
Our pleasure and privilege. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Excellent. So we have coming into the room now with me is Kate Harper. Kate, thank you for joining us, and we'll be asking all of the board members to say a few words about who they are and what it is they like about parks, forests, or the mission of the foundation. So, Kate.
Well, Mary Soderbergh and I have pretty different upbringings, but we got to the same place. I was born and raised in Pennsylvania, served as a state representative for 18 years, advocating for parks and forests all the time. I think in retrospect, it's because when I was growing up, we lived right next door to Fairmount Park in Philadelphia. And I spent hours and hours in the wild and woolier parts of that park. And I think it's influenced my life. And I'd like to encourage people to make sure their kids get to know our parks and forests. I think our parks and forests are Pennsylvania. It's not named Penn's Woods for nothing. And so I'm very happy to serve on the board and try to protect, defend, and enhance our parks and keep them going. I'm also the mother of 2 boys who were in the Boy Scouts. My husband's also was a scout leader, and they spent a lot of time camping in our state parks. And I think that's important too. So I'm on the board to try to keep our state parks and forests going, healthy and green. And I'm hoping that people, take advantage of them now and always, and get their children to understand how great they are.
Excellent. Thank you, Kate. You had mentioned that you had been a legislator. For folks who are watching and they're thinking about maybe they want to advocate for their parks and forests, what can they do?
Well, I think they need to know who their state rep and state senator is, and I think they need to talk to them. The districts are actually small enough that your state rep or your state legislator can get to know you and you can get to know them. And it's not a big deal. Shoot them an email, send them a phone message left at the office. Go through the district where they'll know who you are and let them know that you care about our state parks and forests too. They'll remember that, and they're in Harrisburg to represent you. And so if that's what you want, hopefully they'll deliver on that.
Great. Thank you. You touched on another thing, and that's when we were talking about conservation figures without really looking for a trend, we noticed the trend that a lot of people who are connected to the outdoors as adults spent time in the outdoors as a young person, with a family member or a mentor. So you mentioned for yourself how important that was and how important that was for your children.
Well, I think that's important. And I think today's parents are so busy and have so much to do that this may be hard for them, but particularly during this pandemic while we're all quarantined, it may be helpful if they look to their parks and forests as places where they can introduce the children to that. They'll love it. They'll love it now and they'll love it forever.
Right. It's a great gift, isn't it?
It is.
Great.
Absolutely.
While we're waiting for the next person to come into the studio, is there anything else that you'd like to share?
Well, I think that we do need to talk about the fact that that our parks and forests are getting a lot of visitors now. And sometimes it takes a little work to find the lesser used spaces. I've noticed myself in my own community in Montgomery County that people seem to be overusing the parks that are located near main roads. And sometimes on the same day, a beautiful day, you can go to another park that's not quite on the main road and social distancing's no problem. There's nobody there. And that's often what people go to parks and forests to experience, that sense of tranquility, that sense of Mother Nature, that sense of all by myself. So I want to let people know that we're experiencing a lot of visitors to our parks, but there are still places out there in the millions of acres where they can go and it can be quiet and peaceful and they can, really experience nature.
That you bring up a very good point in terms of, this is a great opportunity to maybe explore some new parks to you, either new state parks, new state forests, or new community parks, to look for areas that have a little less crowding. Yeah, so great. Thank you for sharing that. And Pam, maybe you can share, Pam, for those of you, she's in the background, but there is an active link on the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, where if you're thinking about going out to visit a state park or state forest, you can click on the county and it'll tell you whether or not various things that you might want to do are open and permissible. So that way you don't put in that drive thinking you're going to go spend some time on a beach and realize that the beach isn't open. So
I think that's a good point, because I do think that, you know, you have a memory of a place and then you go there and you're shocked to discover that, you know, hundreds or thousands of other people have the same memory. And it's a little different. It's a little different when we're all there together, when we're not supposed to be all anywhere together.
right. Very good point. Very good point. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We still have some time if there's anything else that you would like to share.
Well, I think I'd like to say also that that our parks and forests are always there when we need them or not, only because Pennsylvanians do support their parks and forests. Not to get into the nitty and the gritty, but most people don't know when they buy or sell a house, some of the transfer tax goes to support the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources in our state parks and forests. And it's important. And I think people should know that these are your parks. Go out and use them. They're yours, but help us at the Pennsylvania Parks and Forest Foundation keep them there for the next generation as they were there for us.
Great, great message. Thank you, Kate. Really appreciate it.
Been a pleasure being here and on the board.
Yes,
And,
we appreciate you joining the board. Look forward to working with you.
Okay,
Thank you.
taking off.
Right.
Hey, it's you and me.
Right. We're waiting for a few other people to come on. So we'll use this time period if you have any questions for Pam or I.
Maria Montero's on her way, and hopefully Brian Clark. So apologize, everybody. It's a little bit crazy, but we did warn you this might be the case.
Yes, it's a new format. We can only have so many people in the studio at one time. So that added to the complications. But I had an opportunity to get out this weekend to visit Cadorus State Park, and I was pleased to see people practicing the physical distancing. And there were some people wearing masks, but for the most part, people were recreating within family units. As the weather gets nicer, we'll see more and more people getting onto the water. You know, just remember to, you know, if you're queuing up to get out onto the water, remember to give distance between you and the people ahead of you, and to, you know, respect a physical barrier, you know, among your fellow park and forest users. That's very important to keep all of us healthy as we move into the summer and as our parks and forests go from red to yellow. I think we learned earlier today that there are 46 state parks in the Northwest and the Northeast and the North Central that are now in the yellow phase, and 16 that will be opening down here in the Southwest and South Central. So that's more and more of our parks coming online.
I was going to ask you, you mentioned about being on the water. Were there a lot of people on the water at Cadorus?
They were, yeah, the sailboats were going out, the power boats were going out, the pontoon boats were going out, the kayakers were on the water. Joe was starting to salivate and wishing he had his sailboat with him, because we were there fishing on along the edge of the lake. So we didn't have a sailboat with us. But remember, the water is still cold, so, you know, please practice safety and wear your PFD, because if you go in the drink, it'll be a little cold. And, you know, there's so much happening right now that you know, let's respect our emergency responders.
Well, my morning walk this morning was up to, I live right near the outflow campground of the Army Corps of Engineers Yacht Dam. And so I walked up across the breast of the dam this morning, and a gentleman came storming by with his boat, and it was it wasn't a kayak, but it looked like an inflatable sort of kayak. And he went down to the launch and he went over to the water, and the wind was just whipping. And he got back in his car and he came back up the ramp. He's not quite ready for that yet. Maria, as promised. So
welcome, Maria. Thank you for joining us.
How are you? Hi. How many people do we have with us?
We have 8 people watching right now, but it will continue to air. throughout the time period. So we're thankful for the viewers that are here, and we again invite people to post any questions or comments that they might have. So in the studio now with me is Maria Montero. Maria is the past chairwoman of the foundation and has been with us for a number of years. And thank you for joining us in the studio, Maria. And if you could talk a little bit about who you are and what you like about our parks and forests, or what you like about the mission of the foundation, I'm sure our viewers would be happy to hear and learn more about who you are.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us and spending your lunch with us. And thank you so much, Marcy and Pam, for getting this together. So I have been involved with Parks and Forests since I was a little baby. I grew up in the Poconos, and that's part of, my DNA to be outdoors. And, my career has taken me to urban areas, but to think about when you're coming from a city or a large demographic area and you come into the mountains, your blood pressure drops. That's like what happens to me, and it is a needed and important resource that I am so happy that we can help support through Pennsylvania Parks and Forests Foundation. I was able to serve in the Corbett administration, and I had an opportunity to travel to over 40 counties, and through that is how I became involved with Pennsylvania Parks and Forests Foundation. It was a wonderful opportunity to discuss really important issues to me, especially with DCNR, and making sure that, not only do we have a well-funded agency, but also we have an agency that serves our community, which is diverse, having individuals that come from different backgrounds who may not have that DNA like we have on how to understand and using our parks and forests safely. And, making sure that we're able to, when we invite new people, to keep our longevity for interest in parks and forests, understanding how they properly can use the parks and forests, and also understanding there's a dimension of educating individuals in where they are, which could be in different languages. It could be, my family hails from South America, and I was born here in the United States. However, my first language I was introduced to was Spanish. So I'm really appreciative that Marcy has been supportive of helping bring, new segments and new people as part of our parks and forests. One of the areas that I grew up in is Beltsville. Beltsville is my favorite park, and my stepdad was a park ranger at Beltsville, so I was there forward and front, and it was my every weekend. I shared with Marcy that my family, like many probably in the beginning, struggled, and while some folks were going to the shore and other people maybe on these big vacations, we spent our weekends at our parks. It was our outlet. It was affordable. It was beautiful. It is beautiful. And, it was basically free. If we did camp, that would be the extra cost. But to think about having that opportunity and that outlet for individuals to enjoy such an amazing natural resource is, part of our goals on why we fundraise and keeping our parks up to date and safe and accessible.
Excellent. Thank you. And Maria, you brought up a really good point in that, the number one reason that people give for visiting our state parks and state forests is for stress reduction. And you commented on is once you get to your park or forest that you're visiting, you just feel all that slip away. And that's so important.
I do. It's so funny. Like when I'm driving on the turnpike and I'm coming from southeastern Pennsylvania, I always tell everybody, like, I can literally feel my blood pressure drop. And I think other people have felt this also. And just being able to take a deep breath. And I'm a big fan of like tuning everything out when I get there, turning off the cell phone and just reconnecting with nature. And I know, Marcy, we posted a couple of things on our PPFF social on how like connecting with nature helps reduce stress. And it's true.
It is true. Yeah, thank you. And we have a saying at the foundation that there's a place and an experience for everyone in the outdoors. And it is a goal of ours to make sure that everybody feels welcomed and has what they need to enjoy our state parks and state forests. So thank you for helping us to meet that goal.
Absolutely. And it's nice to see our other board members on. Hi, guys.
Excellent. So I will now turn to Brian Clark. Brian has been on the board of directors for a number of years. And Brian, if you could take a few minutes to introduce yourself and talk about what you like about our parks and forests, as well as the mission of the foundation.
Thank you, Marcy. Marcy's right. I've been on the board actually longer than Marcy's been with me.
Yes, you have.
We're trying to figure out how many years. So it's over 15 years. And I will just say that growing up in north central Pennsylvania, in a very small town, actually the smallest county population-wise of all 67 counties in Pennsylvania, Cameron County, you grew up in the wilderness, if you will, of north central PA, and being outdoors was always something we did from the time I could walk until today. And so the state parks were always a oasis for my family and many of my friends growing up there. It was, obviously it was free, but there were, Sizersville State Park was where we spent many a picnic and weekend in that area. And also growing up, I was in Boy Scouts, and we did a lot of camping, including utilizing the state parks and state forests throughout north central PA. So I have an affinity for the state parks, and I really think, as some of the other board members I'm sure have talked about, that it is a great way to get away from it all, particularly in our hectic society, and particularly today when we're talking about COVID-19 and all the pressures that come with that and the unknowns. Getting back to the outdoors, to our roots, if you will, is, I think, preeminent thing that we should all be doing to reduce stress load and just to relax. And I also would say that this organization, Morris, you asked about Parks and Forest Foundation. I think it's one of the better. I'm on a number of boards, over I think 4 nonprofit boards. It's one of my favorite boards because of the impact that it can have with the friends groups that we have and all the state parks that we have. It's just a great history in Pennsylvania that we need to maintain and enhance. The fact that we have, I don't think any other place in the country, I travel over the country in my law practice, and people are amazed that when they think of Pennsylvania, they have certain thoughts, the old Rust Belt. But when you start talking about our state parks and forest system, and the fact that there's a state park within 25 miles of every Pennsylvania resident, and with over 12 million people in the state. I mean, it's just incredible, and people are amazed and say, why don't we have that in our state? So I think we have a great history, and it's a great organization to be part of. And I think the other thing I'd like to just share is, in this day and age of very fractured politics, and the fact that there always seems to be someone making an issue on one side or the other, I see the state parks and forests that we have as a bipartisan issue. It was founded by Republicans. It's been funded by Republicans and Democrats throughout the years. And so we need to maintain that. And I think we need to enhance it so that we can find common ground in our forests and state parks. I really see that as something that we need to all seek to achieve.
Those are wise words, Brian. I would agree. Maurice Goddard, who's considered to be the father of Pennsylvania's parks, used to say, a wildfire is a Democrat or Republican. It's a wildfire, and just let's put it out.
Exactly.
So, yeah, and they're nonpartisan. They are appeal to everybody across the board, and are open to everybody as citizens of the Commonwealth. You and I share. While I didn't grow up in Cameron County, I spent summers in Cameron County, so that was very much a big influence in my life as well. And that is, people now might think of the Cameron County as one of the many counties that makes up the Pennsylvania Wilds, where there are 29 state parks and quite a few acres of state forest. So you call a beautiful part of the state home, as where you were born. Yeah. Anything else, Brian, you'd like to add?
Yeah, I just would just say to all those out that are listening, get involved, get engaged, and this will be a lifetime reward and an adventure that you can be part of.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. And now we have with us Eric Madigan. This is Eric's first month as a board member. He's new to our board. So he's jumping in with both feet, and we really appreciate that, Eric. So welcome to the board of directors. He just got off his first board meeting, and I know that he has something coming up in his work here very shortly. So Eric, if you'd like to share with us, you know, a little bit about yourself and what has attracted you to Parks and Forests and to the mission of the foundation, that would be appreciated.
Sure, no problem. Well, thank you. Good afternoon to everyone. Hope everyone is safe and healthy. The one thing I love about being a part of this is it's old home for me. It's something I'm an outdoorsman. I grew up in Maryland for the first 30 years of my life in Baltimore County. I was part of the Mountain Club of Maryland. I'm a fisherman. I love to hike. I love being outdoors so much that in my single days, I was a skydiver. So I saw it from all the different aspects of perspective, if you will. But I can tell you that much like you've heard already, the parks and the forests in Pennsylvania are the place where you just feel your shoulders drop. You just kind of, everything that has just been bothering you, that has been on your mind, just sort of just goes away. And I will tell you that our parks, our open space is one of the things that is just absolutely has no inhibitions. It's prejudice free. It doesn't care what you're dressed, how you're dressed. It doesn't care what you look like, your color, your gender. It doesn't care how much money that you have. It is just one of those friends that's always welcome to see you come in. And at the same time, when you go in and enjoy them, you just have to be respectful, just like any best friend. You always go in, you enjoy your best friend, but you're very respectful of them. And one of the things that's important for this organization is respecting what nature has given us. And it just doesn't happen on its own. There are people that don't have the great intentions that we do. So we have to be there to protect Mother Nature and to help her. And a lot of the donations and the funding and the volunteerism is what we do to give back and to make sure that what we have and what we enjoy is something that's passed on for generations to come. It was blessed upon us. It is our job to make sure that it's blessed upon those going forward. So that is one of the things. I've always been a firm believer of the world is run by those who show up. So show up and protect your park and protect your forest.
Very wise words. And I loved your description of our parks and forests as your friend. You almost made me cry. I don't have tissues in this room, so I got to get myself under control. But that's a very poetic way to put it, because it really is there to receive us, whether we're joyful or we're sad or we're stressed. You know, it's always there to receive us. And come as we are, come with COVID hair.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't care.
Doesn't care. So yeah, treat her like the best friend that you have.
It really is. You mentioned skydiving. Well, we don't necessarily have skydiving in our state parks. We do have hang gliding in one state park in at least one of the forest districts. So if at any point if the family wants to consider a little more, you know.
Yeah, I've ever since getting married, I've had to keep my feet on the ground because it's the responsible thing to do.
It truly is. It truly is. It just adds to the worries.
Yeah. So, you know, I just pick them up and put them down. And the only thing I leave right now is my footprints. And every now and again, I throw a cast in the line. That's about it in the water.
Great. Well, I really appreciate not just you joining us in the studio today, but also you agreeing to serve on the board of directors with the foundation. And I look forward to working with you to help, you know, address some of the needs within our state parks and state forests, help educate people on the needs of our parks and forests, and to engage people in being stewards and being volunteers and in helping them to appreciate all that we have. And like you said, leaving it better for future generations. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good one. So
That's it.
that's it. I like to,
Nobody waiting in the green room.
So, you know, we hope you appreciated meeting members of the board of directors. And you see in the URL at the bottom of the screen, not all of the board were able to meet with us. You know, a lot of them had, some of them had prior commitments, but you can go and learn more about the board members on our website. You can also learn about the staff if you weren't able to meet up with us 2 weeks ago when we introduced ourselves. So we appreciate all of you joining us here today. We appreciate your comments. So look for us on Friday when we will be doing, Michelle Burton will be joining us with a conversation on forest therapy. And we heard from several of our board members how important parks and forests are to them in terms of reducing their stress. Well, forest therapy is one thing that you can do to overall. Oh, and there's also kitty stress reduction.
That's what I was doing, in case anybody wonders what the arm was doing over there.
Anyway, thank you, everybody. Appreciate you joining us. And the broadcast.